Let's be honest, MASH wasn't just a TV show, it was a cultural phenomenon. For 11 seasons, it was more than just something you watched. It was a shared experience that brought a blend of comedy and drama nobody had seen before. Week after week, millions invited the 477th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital into their homes, finding laughter in the madness of war and a deep sense of humanity in the heartbreak. The show became one of the most beloved series ever, with a finale that still holds the record as the most watched scripted episode of all time. But right when the show was at the height of its power, something strange started happening. One by one, some of its biggest stars made the shocking decision to leave. These weren't just minor characters. They were the heart and soul of the early seasons, the actors who helped turn the show into a giant. Their departures left fans totally stunned and asking the same question for decades. Why would anyone walk away from a guaranteed ticket to fame and fortune? Was it just about finding new roles? Or was something else going on behind the scenes? At the 477th, well, the truth is never that simple, is it? It's a story of intense creative battles, bruised egos, simmering frustrations, and deeply personal struggles that the cameras never saw. These weren't just actors leaving a gig. They were people making life-changing decisions that would not only alter their own careers, but would forever change one of the greatest shows in television history. So what really happened? Here are the true stories of the contract disputes, creative frustrations, and personal ambitions that led these stars to leave MASH behind. Before Colonel Potter was the tough but loving father figure of the 477th, there was Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. Played by the endlessly charming McLean Stevenson, Henry was the camp's first CO, a guy who often seemed more interested in fishing than in military rules. He was the bumbling, lovable leader whose relaxed style was the perfect foil for Hawkeye and Trapper's chaos. His office was a constant whirlwind, with Radar O'Reilly somehow always one step ahead of him, and his genuine warmth made him a favorite. McLean Stevenson wasn't just another actor on the show. He was a breakout star. His performance even earned him a Golden Globe Award in 1974, and he was quickly becoming a household name. But behind the scenes, a different story was playing out. Stevenson, a sharp comedic talent, had originally auditioned for a lead role like Hawkeye. When he was cast as the supporting character Henry Blake, it was with the idea that the role could grow. But as the seasons went on, he started to feel like that promise wasn't being kept. The real problem was that he felt sidelined. MASH was supposed to be an ensemble show, but Alan Alda's star power was undeniable, and Hawkeye Pierce was quickly becoming the center of the universe. As a result, other characters, including the commanding officer, were getting less screen time. Stevenson felt underused and creatively stuck. This was made worse by money issues. He reportedly asked for pay raises that were denied, with the network apparently telling him he wasn't as essential as stars like Alda. Meanwhile, the TV world was changing, and big opportunities were popping up. Stevenson had become a popular guest host on The Tonight Show, and there were whispers he might be next in line to take over for Johnny Carson. NBC, a rival network, saw their chance and made Stevenson an offer he couldn't refuse, a fat contract to star in his own projects. It was a chance to be the headliner, not a supporting actor. Friends said that Stevenson felt he'd done his time in supporting roles and was ready to lead. He mistakenly believed that the audience's love for Henry Blake was actually love for McLean Stevenson, the actor, a painful mistake he'd later admit to himself in the world. So at the end of his 3-year contract, he made his choice. He was leaving the 477th for what he thought were greener pastures. The producers, Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds, had a choice to make. They could have given him a simple transfer, but instead, they decided to make a powerful statement. They used his exit to hammer home the show's brutal central theme. In war, nothing is guaranteed, and sometimes the people you love don't come home. The result was Abyssinia, Henry, the final episode of Season 3. The episode is a masterclass in misdirection, filled with funny and heartfelt goodbyes as Henry prepares for his honorable discharge. We see him off, sharing one last moment with his friends before he boards a chopper home. It feels like a happy, ending, and then, in the final moments, the bombshell. A stunned Radar O'Reilly enters the operating room and, with a trembling voice, delivers one of the most famous lines in TV history. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. It spun in. There were no survivors. The shock was real, both on and off screen. The writers kept the final page of the script secret from the cast until the moment they filmed it, so the actors' stunned reactions are completely genuine. The audience's reaction was even stronger. Back in 1975, killing off a main character on a hit sitcom was unheard of. CBS was flooded with thousands of angry letters. The network was so shaken it even cut the final scene from some reruns. But that moment was a turning point. It was when MASH announced it was more than just a comedy. It was a drama that could deliver a gut punch that hit on the real costs of war. Henry Blake's death became a landmark moment in television. For McLean Stevenson, however, things didn't go as planned. His first solo show, The McLean Stevenson Show, premiered in 1976 and was canceled before the first season was even over. He went on to star in a string of other failed sitcoms like In the Beginning and Hello, Larry. Years later, Stevenson spoke with regret about his choice. He admitted, "When I left the show, the mistake was not in leaving. The mistake was that I thought everybody in America loved McLean Stevenson. That was not the case. Everybody loved Henry Blake. So if you go and do the McLean Stevenson Show, nobody cares about McLean Stevenson." He had walked away from a phenomenon to chase a solo career that never materialized, leaving behind a character whose tragic end made him a TV legend. When MASH first hit the airwaves, it wasn't just the Hawkeye show. It was a classic double act. At the center of the 4077th's rebellious spirit was the martini-fueled friendship between Captain Hawkeye Pierce and Captain Trapper John McIntyre. Played with a cool charisma by Wayne Rogers, Trapper was Hawkeye's partner in crime, his equal in surgery, and his best friend in the swamp. Their chemistry was a huge part of the show's early success. Wayne Rogers, a sharp and savvy guy, actually passed on auditioning for Hawkeye because he found Trapper's more impulsive personality more interesting. He signed on believing he and Alan Alda would be co-leads, two sides of the same rebellious coin. For the first season, that's pretty much how it was. But as the show's popularity soared, it became clear that the audience and the writers had a favorite. Alan Alda's performance as Hawkeye was incredible, and his character quickly became the undeniable star. The script started focusing more and more on Hawkeye's moral battles, his love life, and his witty rants. For Wayne Rogers, this slow demotion wasn't what he'd signed on for. He felt his character was being turned into a sidekick, the guy who rolled his eyes at Hawkeye's jokes but rarely drove the story himself. This creative frustration was the main reason he decided to leave. He hadn't signed up to play second fiddle, and the more lopsided it got, the more unhappy he became. There was no bad blood between him and Alda. They were friends. It was purely a professional issue. Rogers, a Princeton grad and smart businessman, knew his role was shrinking and didn't want to stick around to watch it disappear. But his frustration wasn't the only card he had to play. He also had a secret weapon, his contract, or rather, the lack of one. When Rogers was first hired, he objected to a morals clause in the standard contract which he felt was too vague. He refused to sign it, and in a shocking oversight, the producers never got him to sign a revised one. This meant that for 3 seasons on one of TV's biggest hits, Wayne Rogers was technically a free agent. So, when McLean Stevenson decided to leave at the end of season 3, Rogers saw his opening and decided to walk away at the same time. The producers were caught completely off guard and threatened to sue him for breach of contract, only to discover there was no contract to breach. Wayne Rogers was free to go. His on-screen exit was much more sudden than Henry Blake's. In the season 4 premiere, Hawkeye returns from R&R, excited to see his best friend, only to have Radar tell him that Trapper was honorably discharged while he was gone. There was no goodbye, no final episode. Trapper was just gone. The abruptness of his departure reflected the actor's real-life decision and left a huge hole in the show. The producers brought in Mike Farrell as Captain B.J. Honeycutt to replace him. Wisely, they didn't try to create another trapper. B.J. was a devoted husband and father, more grounded and sensitive than his predecessor. His friendship with Hawkeye was deeper and more mature, reflecting the show's shift from a rowdy sitcom to a more thoughtful dramedy. For Wayne Rogers, leaving MASH was anything but a career ender. He starred in the detective series City of Angels and later led another successful sitcom, House Calls, which earned him a Golden Globe nomination. In an ironic twist, CBS later developed a spin-off called Trapper John, M.D. But Rogers turned down the role, not wanting to be typecast. Linville had signed a 5-year contract, and when it was up for renewal, he declined the offer for a 2-year extension. He didn't leave because of fights or money. He left because he was an artist who felt stuck. He was tired of playing a character he felt had become shallow and wanted to avoid being typecast as a bumbling fool forever. His departure was handled off-screen. In the season 6 premiere, it's revealed that after Margaret Houlihan gets married, Frank has a complete mental breakdown and is transferred to a VA hospital back home. In a final ironic twist, he gets promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. Frank's exit gave the show a massive creative boost. It allowed the writers to completely reinvent the dynamic in the swamp. To replace him, they brought in Major Charles Emerson Winchester III, played by the brilliant David Ogden Stiers. Winchester was everything Frank Burns wasn't: a highly skilled, sophisticated, and intelligent surgeon. He was still an antagonist, but he was a worthy opponent for Hawkeye, a man whose arrogance came from real talent, not insecurity. This new character elevated the drama and helped complete the show's transformation. For Larry Linville, life after MASH was filled with steady work, though he never found another role with the same impact. He became a reliable character actor, with guest spots on shows like The Love Boat and Murder, She Wrote. He was proud of his work on MASH, but always believed leaving was the right choice for him as an actor. His decision highlighted a common dilemma: the security of a hit show versus the need for artistic growth. Larry Linville chose growth, and in doing so, he accidentally pushed MASH to grow as well. There was one character who was the innocent beating heart of the 47th, Corporal Walter Radar O'Reilly. With his sixth sense for what Colonel Blake needed, his teddy bear, and his naive Iowa charm, Radar was the soul of the camp. Gary Berghoff's portrayal was so iconic that he was the only actor from the Magi movie to return for the TV series. For 7 seasons, he was the glue that held the unit together, but behind Radar's smile, Gary Berghoff was struggling. The character's immense popularity came with overwhelming pressure. Audiences adored Radar, and Berghoff felt a constant need to live up to that pure, kind-hearted image. This gap between his own personality and the saintly character he played became a major source of personal strain. The professional pressures were also relentless. MASH had a grueling production schedule, and the long hours took a heavy toll. Berghoff described a creeping feeling of burnout, of being emotionally drained by constantly having to be Radar. This professional exhaustion was mixed with turmoil in his personal life. Berghoff was married with a young daughter and felt the show was stealing precious time from his family. He later said, "I was giving my all on set, but I didn't have anything left for the people I cared about most." By the end of the 7th season, Berghoff had made his decision. He was exhausted and needed to put his family first. The producers gave his character a special 2-part farewell episode in Season 8 called Goodbye, Radar. The story mirrored Berghoff's own reasons for leaving. Radar gets a hardship discharge to go home to his family's farm in Iowa after his uncle dies. The episodes are a touching send-off, with each member of the 47th saying their goodbyes. In one of the show's most heartbreaking final images, Hawkeye finds that Radar has left behind his teddy bear, a symbol of the innocence that was now leaving the war for good. After leaving MASH, Gary Berghoff mostly stepped away from the Hollywood spotlight. He did return as Radar for a short-lived spin-off called Whale Tier, but the show was never picked up. He focused on his family and pursued other passions, becoming a professional jazz drummer and a respected wildlife painter. His decision to leave MASH wasn't about chasing bigger roles or more money. It was a deeply personal choice driven by burnout and the need to get his own life back. Gary Berghoff walked away from fame to find peace, leaving behind a character who remains one of the most beloved in TV history. So now we have to ask you, the fans, which one of these goodbyes hit you the hardest? Was it the shocking death of Henry Blake? The sudden disappearance of Trapper John? The end of Frank Burns' ridiculousness? Or the heartfelt farewell to Radar O'Reilly? Let us know in the comments below which character you missed the most. When you look at why McLean Stevenson, Wayne Rogers, Larry Linville, and Gary Berghoff left MASH, their stories are as human and complex as the show itself. These aren't tales of backstage drama, but of real people dealing with the pressures of fame and the creative limits of a long-running show. McLean Stevenson's exit was a cautionary tale about ego and learning the hard way that love for a character doesn't always transfer to the actor. Wayne Rogers' departure was a calculated move by a smart professional who refused to be a sidekick. Larry Linville left for artistic integrity, choosing to leave a popular character behind rather than watch him become stale. And Gary Berghoff walked away for the most relatable reason of all, burnout and the desire to put his family first. But here's the most incredible part. MASH didn't just survive losing these major stars. In many ways, it got even better because of it. Each departure forced the writers to reinvent the show and find new dynamics. The arrival of Colonel Potter, B.J. Honeycutt, and Charles Emerson Winchester III marked the show's final shift from a great sitcom with dramatic moments to a profound drama with comedic ones. The cast changes were a catalyst for its evolution, allowing it to stay fresh and relevant for an amazing 11 seasons. In the end, the real reason these actors left is a powerful reminder that behind every iconic character is a human being, with their own dreams and struggles. Their decisions, made for very different reasons, played an unexpected role in the lasting legacy of a show that changed television forever.